Hello, sports parents, and thank you for signing up for this webinar, Raising a Resilient Athlete. And in this video, I'm going to share some valuable information about the mental side of sports and share some tips about the mental game and tips on how to raise a confident athlete. Now, this webinar today is going to be roughly around 45 minutes or so. So please stick around and so you can learn some valuable information related to the mental game and how you can help your athlete become mentally strong during their competition. Now, this webinar is pretty much geared for sports parents and coaches of athletes ranging anywhere from 6 to 18 years old, and regardless of their competition level. Okay, so what we're going to talk today is going to help pretty much any youth athlete. Okay, so let's get started with it. Okay, my name is Brian McSparron. I have over 20 years of coaching experience. I've coached all different levels of sports from youth to high school to college athletics. My major sport was ice hockey, and I coached college hockey. But I've coached youth and high school lacrosse, soccer, track and cross country, as well as tennis. And growing up, I also played baseball as well. Now, I also have a athletic training, sports medicine background, and I have a master's and specialist degree in physical education and sports science. And I have over 20 years of teaching physical education. As of right now, this is my 25th year teaching. And I am also an author, and I'm a certified mindset sports performance coach. So I have a wide background when it comes to athletics. And my company, my coaching business is called Superior Sports Psyche, and where my goal is to help athletes perform their best when it matters the most. Now, my passion is to speak to teams, their coaches, their parents, and athletes about the importance of mental training and teaching them mental skills, techniques that can be implemented to help them become a better athlete. And that's my goal. Now, the purpose of this webinar today is to give sports parents and coaches some insight into the mental game of sports, as well as going to give some mental tips and strategies on how you can use them to help improve your athlete's confidence. Now, the outline for today is we're going to focus in the beginning on what is sports psychology. Because a lot of people don't know and understand the role of sports psychology. We'll talk about what is mental sports performance coaching. We're going to talk about how do we manage this mental game of sport, because it's totally different than the physical part of the sports. Then we're going to talk about confidence and how athletes gain and lose confidence. And then we're going to share some tips on how you can raise a confident athlete. And then how do you know if your athlete can benefit from mental performance coaching? And then we'll finish up with some final thoughts at the end. Now, first of all, I want to start off with is explaining what is sports psychology. Because a lot of people, when they hear the word psychology, they instantly kind of believe that there's something mentally wrong with a person. And so they don't want to follow up because they don't want to have that label or that stigmatism that I have a mental problem or a mental issue. Sports psychology is not that, okay? And in fact, what sports psychology is, in colleges and universities, they have a sports science department. That's what I was under, okay? And in the sports science department, we study how athletes perform, all right? And within the sports science department, you have different umbrellas of sports science. One of them is going to be sports psychology. How does the mind affect performance? We talk about sports physiology. Physiology is training the body, how to become bigger, faster, and stronger. So your personal trainers, okay, they will focusing mostly on the sports physiology parts. Then we have sports medicine. That's what my background is, okay? So sports medicine, athletic training, when athletes get injured, We're trying to rehab them to get them back onto the playing field. We talk about how we have sports nutrition. How do we feed our athletes so they can have that energy to go out there and compete? And we also have a department called sports biomechanics. Sports biomechanics is how the body moves in different sports. And so your coaches, okay, in your different sports, they focus on the biomechanics of their sport and teaching your athlete how to move their body within their sport so they can get better. Now, it's important to understand that our goal, all right, is to help enhance athletic performance. And that's the major goal when we're talking about the sports science department. We study athletes and how can we make them better utilizing different parts of athletics, okay? So when we talk about mental sports performance coaching, all right, what we're doing is we study sports psychology, all right, and then we're going to apply the strategies and techniques that we learn from sports psychology, all right, and our goal is to help athletes break through their mental barriers in order for them to play consistently, all right, and that's important. And the way we try to do that is we want to be able to take an athlete's potential that they have, physical potential, and then we want to help eliminate as much mental interferences that they carry, all right? And the less mental part of their thing that they have to worry about is going to allow them to excel physically and show off their physical skills and be able to have what we call a peak performance. And so there are some different types of interferences that we want to help athletes overcome that will kind of what we call sabotage their potential. So for an example, your athlete might have a lack of confidence in their abilities to go out there and compete. Or you might have your athlete that lose focus in their game. They have pre-game anxiety. They get so nervous during their game that it really holds them back, okay, because they just can't break from it. Or maybe they just dwell a lot on their mistakes and they're competing with fear, okay? So if all these athletes are competing with these things, they're limiting their potential on what they can do on the playing field. So in essence, what we are is we're going to be a support coach for your athlete to become better, okay? So when we incorporate mental coaching and mental training into athletes, we hit on a lot of different things to teach the athletes. And obviously one thing is we're going to help build up their confidence and self-esteem. We want to teach them some relaxation techniques to help overcome anxiety and nervousness. We're going to help them to become more motivated in their so they can go out there and train the way they need to train. So they don't use excuses like, I'm tired, or I don't want to go out there and practice today. We're going to help them to be a good teammate, how to communicate with their coaches. We're going to teach them skills on how to focus and how to concentrate in their game, and teach them skills related to visualization and goal setting. Now, this is just a snippet of things, but there's so many other things that we do to help athletes on the mental side of the game. But here's there's a lot of myths when it comes to sports psychology. And we want to knock these things out because these things are so false, okay? And one of the things that I hear is that it only works for elite athletes, all right? That is so far from the truth, okay? Any athlete that goes out there and competes, okay, can benefit from sports psychology tips and strategies, okay, to help enhance their performance. It's not only for elite athletes, okay? Coaches will think that I'm mentally weak. Well, that's because coaches really don't understand the mental side of games, all right? More and more athletes now are coming out and talking about the mental part of sport, all right? From LeBron James, and you got Curry coming out talking about the mental side. A lot of baseball players talk about the mental game, all right? And it's predominant out there because they know they need this part of training in order to stay on top of their game, all right? So coaches are not going to be looking at you as mentally weak, but in essence, what you're doing is you're taking ownership of your development, all right? you can't measure results. Okay, well, you can't measure maybe tangible numbers. All right, but what you're going to see is you're going to see a change in your compete level, and things that normally bothered you before, all right, will no longer be bothering you now. And when your athlete can see and feel that change, that's when you know it's hitting them, and they're able to apply it into their game, because now they can go out there and perform the way they want to perform. They want to go out there and perform calmly. They can go out there. They are relaxed. They're not nervous anymore. That's how you know it's working. All right. You're either mentally tough or not. You cannot improve mental toughness. That is such hogwash. Okay. That's having a mixed mindset way of thinking. All right. So we're not even going to talk about that part. All right. And you only need a mental coach as if you're in a slump. All right. Yeah, you kind of hear that, but in essence, we want to try to help athletes before they get into a slump. All right. So we don't want to teach them when they're in it. We want to teach them prior. Okay. So when they start feeling things, they know how to try to get themselves out of a situation when they feel like they're not competing the way they should be, and give them tips on how to overcome situations before they get themselves into a dire situation. All right. Now, the first thing you want to kind of understand when we're talking about the mental game of sports, all right, we have two sides. We have the physical side, and then we have the mental side. And today we're going to be focusing on the mental side. And when we talk about the mental side, is understanding what we call is the performance cycle. And when athletes understand this, they kind of get that aha moment. It's like, okay, now I understand what we're talking about. And the performance cycle is very simple. It's just this relationship between our thoughts and our emotions. And that our thoughts and our emotions is going to affect our performance, either positively or negatively. All right. And so we want to make sure that we are on the positive side of our thoughts and our emotions. If we can stay positive, then we should have a good performance out there. All right. So thoughts are going to elicit an emotion, which is going to affect their performance. All right. So a lot of times, unfortunately, we have athletes that go out there, they have a lot of negative thoughts. Okay. So you might see athletes, and this is self-inflicted. They're not verbalizing this stuff. These are things that they're thinking to themselves. All right. And so, it might be, that shot was in. All right. Or an athlete might be saying, don't mess up. Okay. Or don't hit the ball to me. All right. Or a baseball player might say to himself, I can't hit a curveball. I got to wait for that fastball because I can't hit a curveball. So if an athlete is thinking negative thoughts, that's going to elicit an emotion. Now, those emotions are going to be related to anger, fear, or frustration. Okay? So now if you have negative thoughts and you have negative emotions, what's that going to do? That's going to elicit negative performance. And now your athlete is competing with fear, anxiety, and tension during their performance. And there is no athlete that can go out there and compete with fear, anxiety, and tension. It doesn't work. And try to have a good performance. It doesn't work that way. All right. So our goal is we want to try to get our athletes to go out there and compete freely and relaxed. And that's the key. And we teach your athletes skills on how to compete freely and how to be relaxed. And when they can be free and they can be relaxed, that's when their performance can come up and take on another level. All right. So most athletes, they want to become bigger, faster, and stronger. They want to work on the physical part of the sport. Okay. But what I try to explain to athletes, okay, is that our body plays the sport, but our mind is going to control our actions. Okay? Your athlete has the physical ability to play the sport that they're playing. Okay? If they're a baseball player, they can hit, they can run, they can catch, they can throw. All right? If they're a soccer player, they can run, they can dribble, they can kick, they can pass. Okay? If they're a hockey player, they can skate, they can pass, they can shoot. Right? They have all the physical abilities to be able to go out there and play the sport. But what holds them back from progressing is this. All right. And so what we want to do is help teach athletes how to control this so that they can allow their physical part of the game to be elevated. All right. And so what we try to say is that, again, their mind gets in the way of their progress. Right. And so when we talk about top performing athletes, they are able to go out there and control this relationship between their thoughts and their feelings and emotions. So they know when they start to have negative thoughts, they know how to stop that thought and change it. Okay? So they don't go in a downward spiral. All right? And so the issue that we kind of see a lot with athletes and coaches and parents is that when an athlete is struggling with mental barriers, like confidence, okay, or fear, what do we tell them to do? Go out there and practice more, okay? But like I said before, is like, we have two different things. We have the physical side of sport and we have the mental side of sport. When you're dealing with mental parts of a game, you cannot help it by working on the physical. It doesn't work that way, okay? So that's just what we have to do is we have to go and find what is the root cause that is causing your athlete to have a lack of confidence. Why are they having fear? And once they acknowledge and we find out what's causing these issues, then we teach them how to overcome it. And then that's when their physical stuff takes off. All right. So more practice isn't the answer when your athlete is struggling with confidence, with anxiety, with fear. Okay. Let's get down to the root cause of what's causing the issue. So when we talk to athletes, okay, what is the number one mental barrier that limits athletes from playing their best? And this is what this webinar is about, okay, is confidence. Confidence is the number one thing. So when parents come up to me, they're always asking me, how can my athlete have more confidence to go out there and compete? And I can bet you might be in the same predicament with your athletes, okay? Where is your athlete on their level of confidence? So the first thing that we want to do is kind of explain and define what is confidence so we know what we're dealing with, okay? And in essence, what confidence is, all right, is an athlete's belief system. It's their belief to be able to go out there and perform and to execute a skill or a task, all right? And the way I kind of explain it to athletes and to parents is that this is their own belief system, okay? So when I use like the analogy of basketball, if I have the ball, I can pass it to a teammate and they can shoot the ball for a shot, okay? I cannot take my confidence and pass it to my teammates. My teammate has to have their own level of confidence, okay? So this isn't a self-inflicted, this is within themselves, all right? So when you look at the sports that your athlete is playing, look at the different skills that are required in that sport. And how confident are they in those particular skills, all right? So for example, if we take basketball and baseball. In basketball, you have dribbling, free throws. Tennis, you have your serve, you got your forehand, you got your backhand. Baseball, you have hitting, you got fielding, okay? You got pitching. Okay, think of other sports that are out there, and what are the different skills that your athlete has to do in that sport? So now the question becomes, how confident are they in each of those particular parts of the game? Now, depending on the sport, okay, they might be more confident in one area compared to a different area, right? A basketball player might be more confident on their free throws than they are taking a three-point shot. A tennis player might be more confident on doing a slice serve, okay, compared to their backhand, all right? So, but confidence is very, very fragile, okay? An athlete can lose it really quickly, but it's hard to gain it back, okay? And it can change from game to game, okay? And you see that with athletes, okay? The thing about confidence is it's so important because it's the basis of their overall development and development in sport, as well as their success and enjoyment. The more confident your athlete will be in themselves, okay, the more enjoyment they'll get out of their sport, which will help lead to more success. And they're going to get better in their sport. And that's what we want from our athletes. Okay? So let's figure out where do they get their confidence from? And they'll gain confidence from different areas. Okay? So they'll gain confidence from the past experiences. All right? So depending on what they did maybe last week in a game, especially if it was good, hopefully will carry over into their next game the next weekend coming up. They can use that. Okay? It just might be their overall belief and their overall abilities to go out there and do something. Okay? Some athletes have that high belief system in them. That's great. They're going to gain confidence through their practices. The more they practice things, they're going to get more confident in being able to do things and in their preparation. And then the key is to be able to take that from practice and bring it into the games. And that's two different areas. Okay? How many times have you seen an athlete look so good in practice, but then when a game comes, they look like a different athlete? Okay? That's related to their confidence. They're going to gain some confidence through their physical and mental training. And, on a smaller note, they'll get confidence from their coaches and parents as well. All right? So words of encouragement, those types of things, that will help as well too. All right? But this is where athletes will kind of gain their confidence from. Okay? Now we got to look at the other side. How do athletes lose their confidence? Okay? Well, the first thing is fear. Okay? Athletes have a fear of failure. And the thing when we talking about, again, young athletes, it's not a fear of failure of themselves. It's a fear of failure of letting people down. They have this fear of letting their teammates down, letting their coaches down, letting their parents down. Okay? And that's why they don't want to make mistakes out there. That's why you hear athletes that try to play perfect all the time, because they have a fear of making a mistake because they don't want to let anybody down. All right? It's not about them. It's about others. They're going to lose their confidence from just lacking their trust. Okay? They're able to do it in practice, but they don't trust themselves enough to go out there and do it in a game. Okay? And that's the disconnect that you see athletes that have from practice to games. Why? Because in practices, there's no pressure. In games, there's pressure. Pressure, stress, two different things. When pressure and stress go up, trust and confidence goes down. Okay? You'll see, you'll have athletes that go out there and they overanalyze. Okay? Or they start overthinking the way they play. If they're overthinking themselves and they're thinking about all the things that they do in practice during their games, they're not confident in their abilities to go out there and perform. So we teach them on how to become more confident. Okay? And again, talking a little bit about this before, is trying to play perfect. Okay? And those are just examples. So now the question comes down to is how can you, as a parent, help improve your athlete's confidence? Okay? But first, what I want to do is just kind of let you know is I've been in your shoes before. All right? I've gone through with my own two kids. All right? And my oldest here is Ryan. Okay? My youngest here is Kyle. Okay? But, my two boys had their own separate issues when it came to sports. Okay? Ryan was a perfectionist. He was very hard on himself. And again, he wanted to please everyone. All right? He did a lot of triathlons. He was a wrestler. All right? And I remember when he was wrestling, if he didn't pin the person, he felt that it wasn't a good performance because he didn't pin his opponent. Even though he might have won on points, he wanted to pin the person. And we had to work on that part with him. All right? Kyle, on the other hand, all right, he had a lot of confidence issues, especially when he was younger. Okay? I can't tell you how many times when we were working with him and instantly the words was, I can't do this, I can't do that. Okay, he was always afraid of making mistakes, and when he did make a mistake, all right, he would instantly look for either me or his mom, okay, to see what the reactions were going to be. And so he would be more worried about how we were looking at it compared instead of just going out there and playing the game. Okay, but luckily, my boys had me as a coach to kind of guide them through this process. All right, and they were able to overcome their challenges, and eventually they were able to allow those barriers just to be pushed aside, and they just focused on their game. Okay, and both of my boys, when they got into high school, okay, enjoyed and played sports very well. Okay, so but we had to go through a period of a certain time, okay, where we had to work on these on our kids on their issues that they had. All right, because what happens is, and this is research, is when athletes hit about 13 years old, there's a crossroad in their development. At 13, 14 years old, it's, do I continue to play or do I quit? All right, and so we want to be able to make sure that we give our athletes the tools so they keep on continuing to play sports. All right, so now the question comes down to is, how can you as a parent help build up your kids' confidence? All right, so I want to share with you 7 tips to what you can do to help build confidence for your athletes. Okay, so number 1 is, I say, spend 30 minutes to 24-hour rule, where that means where you don't talk about the game. Don't talk about the game right after the game. It's very common, okay? As soon as a kid finishes the game, we want to talk about the game right away, okay? Kids got to decompress from the game, okay? Games are stressful for athletes. Yes, it's supposed to be fun, but at the same time, it's very stressful, okay? And the way I kind of explain, especially to parents, is just take for you, you're out doing your job, all right? And let's just say you had an 8-hour day, a 10-hour day, or a 12-hour day. As soon as you get home, you got your significant other, your spouse, or your kids talking to you right away. How was your day? What did you do? This and that, okay? And you're just like, can I just sit down and have a cup of coffee? The same thing goes for the kids with their sports, okay? Let's not talk about the game right after the game. Give them time to decompress, all right? And let them talk about the game, all right? I know you want to talk about the game. We want to talk about their performance out there, okay? Because we're happy for them, okay? But they might not want to talk about it, especially if they had a bad game. Now, if they had a good game, yeah, they're going to want to talk about it. But if they had a bad game, all right, what do as parents and coaches? We want to criticize. We want to try to fix it. They don't want to hear about it, okay? So don't talk about the game. And then ask for permission and see if they want to talk about it. And a lot of times what you'll see and what you'll notice is if you give them time, they'll be more open about their performance later on than they will if you just start drilling them about the game right after it. Okay? But the other side too is look at their demeanor. Okay? If they want to talk about it, great, let them talk about it. If they don't want to talk about it, respect it. Don't force it. Okay? And it might be a day or two, and they might come on back and, okay, yeah, I can talk about the game right now. All right? So, number 1, 30-minute to 24-hour rule. All right? Second tip is talking about the process and not the outcome. And one of the things that we talk about with athletes, and probably the biggest thing that they get out of mental coaching things, is understanding this relationship between working the processes and the outcome. Okay? And understanding that our controllables and our non-controllables in sports. And we can only focus on the things that we have control over. And as athletes, they have control over their thoughts, their effort, their preparation, their attitudes. They have control over that stuff. But what do we tend to focus on things? We focus on things that are not in their control. We focus on outcomes. We focus on the officials. We focus on the other team. We focus on coaching decisions. All of that stuff is not under control of your athletes. Okay? But when we put so much time and energy into the non-controllables, we get stuck. Athletes get stuck. Okay? The outcomes of a game is not in the control of your athlete. Okay? But what do they have control over? Their effort, their preparation. And if they give that full effort, then they can possibly get a good outcome. But we focus too much on the outcomes of our game. Okay? So instead, what we want to do is ask your athletes, what did they learn about their performance today? Okay? Ask them that simple question. What did you learn today while you play? Regardless if you won or lost, what did you learn? Okay? Athletes should be learning every time they're out there playing. Okay? And then take notice of the little things that your athlete did. I use an example with baseball. Okay? So if you got a baseball player, a young baseball batter up there who's scared of the ball or whatever, all right, and he's bailing out, but then all of a sudden he hits the ball and maybe it went foul. Okay? That's an improvement. That's the little things that you want to notice in your athlete. And believe me, if you notice those things as a parent, as a coach, it's only going to help that athlete with their confidence. Okay? And then an exercise that we do with older kids is a simple reflection exercise of well, better, and how. Okay? What did the athlete do good in their game? What do they want to do in order to get better for their next game? And then how are they going to do it? Okay, so it's a progression. Okay, and I'll do that exercise more with my older kids, around that 12 years old and older. Okay, but that's a good thing. But throw that question out to them. What did they learn today? And listen to their responses. Okay. All right, number 3. Eliminate expectations, and we're going to set some little goals for them. Okay, expectations are huge on athletes. Okay, they put so much expectations, and expectations becomes pressure. Because unfortunately, what we do is we put expectations on the things that we can't control, which is the outcomes, our results. All right. So, for an example, if a golfer has an expectation to shoot 75, well, what about a basketball player who has an expectation to score 20 points? Or what about a pitcher in baseball or softball that they have an expectation to strike out 8 batters? Now, what happens if they don't reach those expectations in their game? They come up a little short. How are they going to judge their performance? Most of the times, if they don't reach their expectations, they're going to judge their performance as negative. Okay? So instead, what we want to do is we want to set some little goals for them that they can work on and that they can focus on during their competition. So for an example, for the golfer who wants to shoot a 75, we'll say, well, let's hit the fairway 75% of the time. If you hit the fairway 75% of the time, you're going to give yourself a good chance to score 75. All right? If a basketball player wants to score 20 points in a game, well, their goal might be, I'm going to attack the paint when I get the ball instead of playing passive or passing that ball off when I get. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to attack the net. Okay, now we're changing it. That's going to give you the opportunity to score 20 points. And for the pitcher or softball player, for strikeouts, it's focusing on one pitch at a time. Okay, you can't strike out 8 batters, all right, without focusing on one pitch at a time. So this is how we change things from the viewpoint for our athletes. We can take their expectations, what they think they want to try to achieve, then we flip it and we change it into goals to help them stay on the right path in order for them to have a good performance. And again, athletes do not control their outcomes. Okay? All right. So next, number 4. Watch and notice your athletes' self-talk and their body language. this really starts talking about their confidence. And you can notice a lot of things just by their self-talk. Now, their self-talk is just their inner dialogue of their thoughts and how they express themselves. So if you hear the words, I can't, I stink, okay, I this, and it's or yeah, but, okay. Baseball players are pretty good at this one. I had to retrain quite a few baseball players, okay, where they might say, I had a good game hitting, but, okay, they throw in something negative. They can't even appreciate the good things that they just achieved by throwing in that but, because now they're going into that negative and they're pre-programmed that way. All right, so watch their self-talk. Right, because again, athletes tend to focus on the negatives. Right, so what we try to do is we kind to refocus those thoughts and we start looking at other things to help reshape their thought patterns. Okay, and affirmations is probably a common thing that you might have heard about. All right, affirmations are I am, and then we use a positive statement at the end. Okay, to refocus and reshift that negative pattern. All right. Now, when it comes to body language, and athletes don't understand the importance of body language. Okay, body language is so important. All right, and when we talk about body language, we want to keep our chest up, we want our heads up, we want our shoulders back. That's exuberating confidence. Imagine if a batter is coming up to bat, okay, and has his head up, his shoulders are back. That batter is looking at the pitcher, okay, and instantly that pitcher is like, oh, okay, I got this is a good hitter coming up. Compared to a batter that's coming to the batter's box, he's kind of drooping down, his head's down, he's dragging the bat behind him. That pitcher automatically knows, I got him. I'm going to strike him out. All right. So body language is so critical. All right. So number 4, watch self-talk and body language. Number 5, teach your athlete to breathe. I can't tell you how many times I go to sporting events, all right, and I hear the word focus. All right, focus out there, baby. Come on, baby, you can do it out there. Just focus out there. Well, here's the thing about focus. Focus is a skill. Okay, unless your athlete has been told or taught how to focus, when you say focus out there, they don't know what you mean. All right, because focus is a skill, is a learned skill. And we teach athletes how to focus. And one of the things that we use and teach athletes is teaching athletes how to breathe. Okay, because when athletes breathe, they become focused. All right, so we teach athletes how to breathe in competition. Okay, so when they are focused, they become present. And that's what we want our athletes to be. Especially, again, the older athletes. Okay, middle school age and higher. Okay, we teach them how to breathe so that they become present out there. So when can an athlete take a breath? Well, in different sports, it's going to be different places. Okay, for hitters in baseball, softball, it might be just before they get into the batter's box. Take a nice deep breath. Pitchers, okay, they take a nice deep breath before they get ready to make a pitch. For anyone that's in a starting position, like track and field or swimmers, okay, when they're getting on the starting blocks, get them to take a nice deep breath. Okay, in basketball, they can do it at the free throw line. Okay, games that require serve, tennis, volleyball. Okay, golfers right before they swing. Okay, get them to breathe, not focus. Okay, again, focus is a skill that they have to learn how to do. But they can learn, they know how to take a nice deep breath and blow it out. That you can help your athlete with. Okay? Okay. Number 6, and this is a real important one. Okay, and this really kind of goes to us as parents. Okay? Is we want to be positive and supportive to our athlete. And I know that you are. Okay? But here's the thing. Mistakes are going to happen. All right? Remember, we talked about before is that the fear of our athlete is making a mistake because they don't want other people. Okay? So we have to allow them to make mistakes. and say it's okay. Because when they make a mistake, they're going to learn. Okay? And when they learn, that's how they're going to get better. Why did that error happen? Why did you make that? Why did you miss that shot? You don't tell them. Allow them to explain to you why they think they made that mistake. Okay? But at the same time, when they make a mistake, okay, we have to stay in control. Okay? Just like I told you about my son Kyle. Okay, when he made a mistake, he instantly looked for us for our reaction, even though we were just sitting there. It got so bad where I would move to a different court and watch him from a distance so he couldn't see me. All right? And so look at that. If you see your athlete looking at you a lot, they're looking for your reinforcement there. And how you act is going to help them or hurt them on the playing field. So you, as a parent, be in control while you're watching your athlete when they make a mistake. Okay? So I usually say, act like the grandparents. Okay? Love and support them unconditionally. Okay? Which leads into this one here. Okay? Top secret. After every single game, tell them a secret. Because what's the first question your athlete's going to ask a lot of times after their game? Mom, Dad, how do you think I played? All right? We want to make sure that sports stays fun for them, that they want to continue to play. Okay, like we told you. At the age of 13, that's when the crossroad comes in. All right? If it's no longer fun for them, they will not play. They're going to quit. So if we want our athletes to continue playing, okay, into middle school and high school, fun has to stay in the game. It can be competitive, but we have to keep the fun in the game, in the enjoyment. Okay? And the other thing that gets athletes from quitting at that age is pressure. Okay? Those are the two biggest things. Okay? Sport is no longer fun, and there's too much pressure. Minimize the pressure, increase the fun, and your athlete is going to continue all the way up through high school. Okay? So again, you got to take the play. So what I say is have these 6 words, and especially for our young kids. Okay? I just love watching you play. Okay? I used to tell that to my high school kid all the time. Okay? Dude, I just love watching you play out there. Regardless if you win, lose, or whatever. I just love sitting here watching you play. Knowing that you are enjoying yourself on the court. And I love watching you learn how to, make changes in your game, how you approach the game differently, how you make changes in your game, how you learn from your mistakes. I just love watching you do that because you are growing. Okay? And that's so important for them. Okay? Again, as I say, act like the grandparent, not the parent. Love and support them unconditionally. Okay? So again, here's summarize. Here are my 7 steps to build confidence for your athlete. Remember that 30 to 24-hour rule, 30-minute to 24-hour rule. Work the process. Focus on the controllables of the sport. Okay? Set up process goals, not expectations. Watch their self-talk. All right? Teach them to breathe, not focus, because focus is a skill. All right? But they can breathe out there. Mistakes equals learning. All right? We got to make sure that we control ourselves, and then tell that little secret to them. I just love watching you play. All right. So my goal, my thing for you as a parent and coaches is pick one of these. Which one of these 2 of these 7 tips here can you implement to your child, okay, or to your players? Okay, maybe just pick 1 or 2. Don't try to do everything at once. Okay, and then maybe just add another one as you go along. Okay. So, real quickly, now the next thing about, when we talk about mental sports performance coaching, again, the focus on when we talk about mental sports performance coaching is we're there to help enhance performance. And hopefully you understand through this webinar the difference between the physical side of sport and the mental side of sport. And hopefully you might see the relationship of how important the mental part is on your athlete's progression in their game. Okay? And if we can teach your athlete how to overcome some of their mental barriers, then their game is going to take off. Okay? So how do you know if your athlete can benefit from mental coaching? All right. So are they playing up to their abilities? Okay. Do they perform better in practices than we do in games? We talked about that before. All right. Do they question or doubt their abilities? Do they speak negative talk like I can't? Do you have a lot of anxiety? Okay. Do they get nervous a lot in competition? Do they lose focus in their games? Do they lose their confidence? Okay. And now, if they answered yes to any of these questions, then your athlete will benefit from mental coaching. All right, to help their game go to the next level. And so, with me through Superior Sports Psyche, I offer different coaching options. Okay. Now, first of all, it's I do virtual one-on-one coaching, which is going to be individualized. Okay, when we do it through Zoom. All right. So it's usually it's anywhere from 6 weeks all the way up to maybe 10 to 12 weeks, depending on their issues and what they're trying to overcome. And then my focus is staying with them afterwards to be, again, that support coach for them. All right. And so we really dive in when we're doing the one-on-one coaching with them. The other side too, if you're a coach on here, okay, is doing virtual group coaching for teams, for players. So if you're a coach, the benefit of this is teaching your team the importance of the mental game. And then what is that going to do for you, for your coaching? We teach them. So now when you're teaching your athletes as the coach, they can absorb everything in a whole different light. All right. And so now your coaching becomes better because they're going to take in your coaching in a different way. All right. And then the other way is through my online course, which is called the Resilient Athlete course. Okay. Now, if you have any questions and you're interested in any of the coaching programs, you have any questions, you can email me there at brian@sspmentalcoaching.com, and we'll set up a Zoom call. And we'll talk about your athlete and their gains and their challenges, and we'll talk about what's the best option that we can go with to help them out. Now, when we talk about my online course, okay, it's called the Resilient Athlete course. Okay, if you want more information, there's a QR code there. You can scan it, but there's a link underneath this webinar link that you can click on it as well too. But it's me going through a series of videos, and I give out worksheets for them as well too. Okay, and now when I talk about my coaching, okay, is when we talk about the mental part, my focus is on athletes is teaching them 3 key areas of the mental game. One is building up their mindset, because everything starts with mindset. Okay, I have to retrain their mindset so they can see the mental side from a different point of view. And once they understand it, then we can move forward. All right. And so first is building up their mindset. From there, we're going to build up their focus and concentration. And from there, we're going to build up their confidence. All right. And so it's a whole package together, okay, on building up the mental side of their game. And that's why I call it the resilient athlete. When they learn all this stuff, they're going to be more resilient on the playing field. All right. Now, the link is there for the course. And if you decide to go through it, all right, if you use the code webinar when you check out, it'll give you a 20% discount off the cost of it. Okay. Now, the other thing too is here's a couple of little feedbacks from athletes that have gone through it and parents. Okay. You can kind of read that as we go along. All right. So, athletes have they see success, and parents see a change in their athletes, which is really key and which is really fun to watch. Okay. Now, the other side too, like I told you, is I'm also an author, and I wrote a book called Raising a Resilient Athlete. Okay, and this is a guidebook for parents. All right, and if you use the QR code there, you can download the digital version of the book. Okay, and again, the link is also underneath this webinar as well. Okay, I'm also on social media. I have a Facebook page at Superior Sports Psyche, and I'm building up a YouTube channel. Okay, so I'm posting more and more videos on YouTube. So check out and become a subscriber of mine at superior-sports-psyche on YouTube. And if you have any questions on different topics that you might be interested in, send me a message or comment in some of the videos, and I'll be happy to do a video to answer your question. Okay. Here's a little bit about my information. Okay, again, my email, my phone number's there. You can call or text me. Okay, anytime. And I just want to say finally, thank you for sticking to the end of this webinar. And my message to you is enjoy the journey of being a sports parent. Okay, it's a wonderful journey. So enjoy it with your athlete. Okay, so for now, thank you very much. Okay, bye.